Hi, this is Chris. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about this discussion about like is marketing ops marketing and this ongoing discussion that we've had about like the need for us as marketing operations professionals to be cross-functional and why that feels so compelling to us. Um, and so here's some thoughts. And so I'll give you a little bit about my background is I've been in the marketing operations and the revenue operations space for about 16 years now. But one thing you may not know is I am a classically trained marketer. I have an MBA from MBA in marketing and brand management from Indiana. And I do carry a lot of that perspective into the way I think about B2B marketing, the way I think about like how we use marketing automation in the B2B space. So, and what I would argue is that a lot of the things that we think about as cross functional actually are classical marketing like needs. But however, in B2B marketing, especially in the way it's been redefined in the digital age, largely what we think about marketing is something a little bit short of what the classical marketer would think about. So what I want to do in this video is talk about like the 4 P's of marketing and a perspective on how we engage, how we get involved. And a lot of this is going to depend upon org structure. I'm not going to cover that here. I'll cover that in some future content. But I want to give you just a quick perspective on like that the cross-functional need is in a degree would be classically defined as marketing and start a conversation about how do we get involved. So I did a little kind of shot of the 4 P's. And if any of y'all have taken a marketing 101 class in college or have an MBA, you've been exposed to this. I'm going to start with product. So product is essentially what is the value that we're delivering to the customer. It's essentially what we're communicating. But it's also like how the customer values the product, and is there something called a market product fit or a product market fit. Essentially, is our product something that the market values, and then how do we get that in front of the customer? And there's a multitude of strategies, but ultimately we as marketing operations professionals, so number one, need to understand like the products that do have fit and influence our demand generation stakeholders to really stick to those, because those are going to be the items that are going to be the most effective. Also understand from the data like what people are asking for. That's something way we can get involved. It's probably not within our scope today, but it's a way we can get involved because we are really interested in the data, moving the business forward. And then what's been really interesting is in this recent wave of like freemium and product-led growth initiatives, the product and the data that the product provides is giving us a lot more data and information by which to market our products. So our product-led growth initiatives are only going to be as successful as our intelligence about how people are using either the freemium products, the free trial products, or if we're looking at this from a expansion and cross-sell, how they're using the products as a customer. So that's, and we need to get involved with our product teams. So, most likely our product marketing teams, because we understand the product messaging, what they're seeing in the market that's resonating. But also with our product management teams and the product analytics teams, especially if we want to bring product usage data into our maps, and understand what's relevant, because these products do generate a lot of data. Because you think about all the interactions you have with a SaaS B2B product, that the amount of data that's producing could be very overwhelming. So anyways, that's product. The second one is price. So largely in B2B organizations, price is being covered mainly by in your finance groups. A lot of a lot of organizations, finance teams are looking at like, how can we, how can we increase revenue based upon, the number of units that are being sold, yada, yada, yada. So we can, we can take a look at, essentially the price point, and this might fall a little bit outside of our scope, but I'm going to show you, talk to where this does get a little bit more relevant. But look at the price points that are generating the highest conversion rates, and the highest conversion rates could be from a lead perspective if you publish your pricing on the web, and it could, and if you don't publish your pricing on the web, you would, you would work with your sales operations partners to kind of understand at what discount level you're getting your best conversion, that people are converting and you're seeing bookings of the product. So one way that we can get involved, especially from kind of a larger revenue operations perspective, is also understanding that like your finance team they might be setting the list price, but the ultimate price that the customer is going to be signing up for is largely being determined by your sales team. It's largely being determined by the discount approval process that's in your configure price quote tools, your CPQ tools, and ultimately what your management is willing to approve in order to get the bookings, in order to get the deals that are going to drive revenue. So understanding what that looks like, and then being a good cross-functional consultant and communicating that across your businesses is going to be very key, because ultimately if we're concerned about like deal velocity, we want that price to be optimal so that we have less like back and forth negotiation over price and more conversations about value. So the next one is promotion. We're very familiar with promotion. A lot of us are involved in the campaign operations process, and like promotion, like, is the messaging on target? What is the conversion rate of certain campaigns? Email open rate, click rate. What percentage of the people we're inviting to certain events are registering? What's our registration to attendance conversion rate? So essentially, from a campaign operations perspective, we're looking at the efficacy of our messaging, looking at the efficacy of our offers, like how many of it, this is ultimately the question of like, what percentage of my campaign funnel is turning into MQLs, what percentage of my MQLs are turning into meetings, and what percentage of those meetings are turning into bookings. So we're fairly familiar with this. We think, depending upon where we sit in the organization, we have more opportunity to influence that by giving our demand generation teams and our outbound marketing and sales teams information about like what messaging, what types of messaging is converting, is resonating, and providing them data and insights so that they can be more effective. That's something that we generally eat, breathe, and live out. And the last one is place. And this is largely where we as marketing operations professionals are very, very comfortable. So place is where the customer is. We want to meet the customer where they are. And so, if they're responding to email, we want to do more email marketing. If they're converting and responding more on video-based content or text-based content, ultimately we want to find out how we can refine that mix of content so that we're putting the right content where the customer is. So from a B2B standpoint, B2C standpoint, this, obviously means, where are you placing your storefront? But in our context, it is, the storefront is more virtual, it's more digital. So we need to understand where that customer is digitally, what is, where they're having those conversations. And it may involve us getting a little bit more involved in what we would call the dark funnel activities, like getting more involved in looking at what people are saying about our product online, what mediums, what forums they're communicating, what our rating is on like different review sites, and how those are influencing people coming to our brand or coming to our competitor's brand. But we need to understand all of those places. And some of those we're able to very easily measure because we have systems and cookies to track those things. And some of those are a little bit more difficult. And this is where some of that cross-functional activity can be very valuable, is understanding from our social teams, talking to our sales teams about what they're seeing when they're engaging with customers online on LinkedIn, those type of things. So all in all, like if you look at that, what does that span? That spans, sales negotiation, it spans finance, it spans product and engineering, because ultimately the product is being developed by a product ownership team that is going through engineering cycles. And of course, it's going through a various amount of marketing teams, and it may be marketing teams beyond the scope of just the demand generation, the marketing communication folk we generally talk to. It is important for us to be cross-functional, and the way we are cross-functional is largely going to depend upon how we sit, where we sit in the organization, which I'll cover a little bit later. But I wanted to provide these thoughts so you can start thinking about, okay, where do I need to increase my influence from a cross-functional standpoint? Hope you find this helpful. Thanks.